Thank you, Mr. Banerjee and Mr. Panda, for sharing those insights, and thank you, Mr. Basu, for steering us through that thought-provoking conversation. Our next guest for the day is a man who has had a transformative impact on India's financial landscape, a man whose vision has led to the Edelweiss Group becoming one of the top investment firms in India. Rashesh Shah embarked on a journey to build a world-class financial institution in 1995. At the time, the firm worked on a private equity syndication and mergers and acquisitions and focused on advisory services. Over the years, it has grown into becoming one of India's most influential financial institutions, offering a wide range of services from wealth management to investment banking and asset management. Under Rashesh Shah's leadership, the Edelweiss Group has not only cemented its place in India, but also expanded its footprint globally. Join us as we welcome Rashesh Shah, the man who turned a small financial boutique into a financial service firm with a net worth of over 8,000 crore rupees. Calling in for a fireside chat along with Niranjan, and also joining us would be Mr. Sundeep Sikka.
Oh yes, joining Mr. Rashesh Shah on stage is another visionary leader who's been put at the forefront of innovation of the asset management and investment industry. Sundeep Sikka joined Nippon Life India Management Asset Management Limited in 2003, and he was quickly elevated to the role of CEO in just 6 years, becoming one of India's youngest CEOs in the asset management industry. In fact, Mr. Sikka has played a pivotal role in the growth of the businesses, both domestically and internationally. Under his leadership, the company has also acquired Goldman Sachs India business. Throughout the course of his nearly 3-decade-long career, Mr. Sikka has been associated with numerous prestigious organizations, including CII, FICCI, and the Reserve Bank of India. Niranjan Narayanaswamy will be moderating this session.
Thank you, Suesha. Okay, so we have a legend in the house. Mr. Rashesh Shah has seen different governments come and go. You've been around for so many decades, Mr. Shah. In Mumbai, you're a name to reckon with. Sundeep Sikka, one of the most influential mutual fund name in India. I'll start with you, Mr. Rashesh Shah. This year, we've kept the theme of the India Economic Summit as Viksit, Bharat, Bullseye, right? You've seen the UPA era. You've seen the Modi era, and you've seen the changing financial markets over the decades. Are we on track for the 50 trillion at 2047 that we talk about?
Yeah, actually, before we start, I want to thank all of you, and truly very honored to be here for this very prestigious event, and thank you to Arnab, and congratulations for building such a fabulous campus. Really very impressive and very honored to be here amongst all of you. And it is actually very appropriately themed conference today, because I think India is at a stage. So, you know, we always keep on thinking a lot of things in India remain the same, but a lot of things keep on changing. So India has been growing. For the last 30 years, we've been steadily growing. Our economy has actually, you know, doubled in size every 6 to 6.5 years for the last 30 years. But what has changed is now we have scale at $4 trillion, and we'll continue to have this. So this growth rate, we will become about 11-12 trillion by 2035. We'll become, say, about 25-30 trillion by 2047. But this is, we are now compounding at scale. So I call it the golden age of compounding for India is underway. And when I see this 5-acre campus and all that, I say this is India not at $4 trillion, but this is what India is going to be in the next 10 to 15 years. So I think the scale that we are seeing, what we saw 15, 20 years ago to what we are seeing now is what is going to be amazing. And along with that, what is also changing, and especially last 8-10 years we have seen that, is we are moving from a country of savers to a country of investors.
Yes.
And I think part of your theme today also covers that, is we had a very strong Indian banking system. But I've always believed that we have very strong banks. We have close to 300 crore accounts now in the bank. But banking was about saving money. It was not, when you and I keep money in the bank, we are saving money, we are not investing money.
Yes.
What we are seeing last 8-10 years, and along with the mutual fund industry and the capital markets and insurance growth, is we are now starting to invest money. And as we have seen, any family that saves money is only doing half the job. When you start investing that smartly and get return, the family income really starts galloping away. And that is what we are seeing in India. So we are compounding at scale. We have still a long runway to go. And along with that, we are also changing our color as a country from a country comfortable with saving to a country now getting comfortable with investing.
So well said. And I can actually familiarize myself with that because, we as journalists, most often we don't have time sometimes to, even have a lunch or, because the role of journalists and our work hours are different. It's crazy sometimes, right? But as you grow and as you start having families, and this is the question I wanted to ask Sundeep Sikka, I didn't know about mutual funds too much until recently, right? And I think the role of mutual funds in the growth of the Indian story, like I said, saving is one part of it, investing changes it altogether. And the role of mutual funds in doing that for the Indian, I wouldn't just say middle class. Today, I read somewhere about tier 2, tier 3 cities, the number of people who are investing in the mutual funds industry, right? Sandeep, what have you seen?
No, thanks a lot for having me. And it's very important for me to start by saying I think mutual fund industry is going to play a very big role in Viksit Bharat, Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Yeah.
Because many times what we think mutual fund is about just investing, creating wealth.
Yes.
But I think what you have to understand is, as Rashesh also mentioned, in India, people always confused between savings and investments.
Yes.
Money kept in the bank was assumed it's going to create long-term wealth, but actually it was never the case. So what we are seeing right now is, I think the fact that you, like you mentioned, you were not aware of mutual funds,
Yes.
Believe me, you are majority of India did not know about it. But we are very happy today, I think, because fundamentally it was always mutual funds were subject to market risk, has moved to mutual funds hai. And the fact that in February, Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Modi, mentioned about the role of the mutual fund, because we not only convert household savings for capital formation, a lot of companies which were coming in the morning, we had Ashish talking about new IPOs and all, mutual fund industry is playing a very big role there. But I think the fundamental thing that the mutual fund industry, to your question, the big change that has happened about 20 years back or even 10 years back, the industry was dominated in bigger cities.
Yes.
Today, you'll be happy to know 54% of all new SIPs that come to the industry are coming from smaller cities and towns. And one thing we need to give it, and as an industry, professional industry body, we give a lot of credit to what we have done. But how did this start? The foundation was started by Prime Minister Modi when you see three things change the fortunes of mutual fund industry. Jan Dhan, when you had 70 crore bank accounts which opened. Demonetization, maybe liked by people, not liked by people, but the formalization of the economy, money coming in. Unified KYC, all these things created. So 2014, when Prime Minister Modi came to power at that time, the mutual fund industry AUM was only 9 lakh crores. Yeah. And today, and when he in February he talked about it, mentioned at that time it was 54 lakh crores. And today it is 70 lakh crores. So I think this is actually a classic case of small investors from small cities and towns investing and participating in the India growth story. Yeah. But the most important thing I'm going to touch upon is what the finance minister in the morning talked about, that it's very important to be friendly with all foreign countries, but we have to take care of our economic interest. Yeah. What mutual fund industry is doing is with 25,000 crores of monthly SIP, 3 lakh crores, which means technically speaking, we have created an environment where our dependence on FI money has reduced. So never before in the history of country, last month you saw FAI money going out, but 90,000 crores went. Yes. But the market did not tank. So this is the power, and this is what we say Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Yeah, and all of us were worried what's happening in the stock markets. And of course, Mr. Rashesh Shah follows the financial markets very closely. I mean, he's invested his entire life there. You spoke about investing. If you invest, when a family invests, I mean, you invest for yourself, for your family, but for a country to invest and grow richer, you need to create jobs, right? And when you talk about Viksit Bharat, it's not possible to do that without creating jobs. Now, as you've seen the financial markets change and evolve over the years, do you see job creation also happening as it should?
Yeah, actually, it's an important question to ask because as we get older, we also realize that the financial markets don't exist for only the investors to create wealth. That has to be one of the objectives, but it also has to create jobs for the country at large. The problem in answering your question is that we don't know. We can only experience the anecdotal evidence. But even today, if you ask me or if you ask Sundeep, how many people are employed indirectly and directly in the mutual fund industry, the answer will be, we don't know. If you ask us how many people are employed in the capital market, the answer will be, we don't know. If you ask me how many are employed in banking, we don't know. So I think there have been jobs that have got created, but we need to create data about jobs.
Yeah.
And I keep on saying that to all the government agencies and regulators. We do hundreds of filings to SEBI and RBI and IRDA all the time. We should be asked to file how many jobs that we are creating. Yeah. And I think this investing impetus will become more visible, more powerful, and will really allow us to articulate that, yeah, the stock market is doing well, investors are doing well, but the country is also doing well because we are creating jobs. Yeah. Because there are about 100 million people who are investing in the stock market or mutual funds, but there are maybe another 400, 500 million people who are also wanting jobs. Yes. So, and they have to be connected. So I think it is creating jobs, but we need to show evidence of that, we need to articulate that, and we all of us in the industry need to speak about, because I think the two main part of investing which gets lost amongst returns, and the market is up and we made 30% return, and if we all talk about stocks that we pick that go up, I think ultimately we have to remember the idea is to create jobs, but the idea is also to help in capital formation. Yeah. So we do believe that stock market should not be the end objective, it should be the means to an end. Yeah. And the end is, can we create jobs and can we really create capital formation efficiently for the country? Because when it is only via banking, it is not as efficient, and that is what we have seen last 30 years as the stock markets have also played a role in capital allocation, as the insurance industry has started playing a role in capital allocation and capital formation. Our economic growth has picked up. We used to be at 4-5% growth. Now we have gone to about close to 6-7% growth. I think India's target for Viksit Bharat, if you want to, I think you have this thing, the eye of the
Bullseye.
What we call the bullseye. I think for all of us in India, the bullseye has to be, can we get to 10% growth without overheating, without humming and hawing and panting out there? We have got close to that, but every time we get there, we are like out of breath. We are like, like an overheated car. Yeah. I think we need to getting to a, GDP growth of 10%, which is available in India with our investment, with our consumption, with our savings, all of that when you put together, we can get to 10% growth. And the government, the industry, the investors, all of us have to get together and try and debate saying, should that bullseye target be 10% growth for India? Because at 10% growth, we will truly progress to a per capita income of $8,000-10,000 from current $3,000.
I think, you want to talk about policy as well. I'll come to policy in just a bit. But I want to go back to Sundeep and ask him a question about mutual funds. Because I remember when we first saw the ads or heard the ads of mutual funds on TV, it said, mutual funds are subject to market risks. Please read the terms and conditions carefully before investing, right? To what you said, I found that interesting. You said mutual funds, sahi hai, right? Is it as simple as that? Because when you look at the trends of people investing from villages, tier 2, tier 3 cities, has it become a credible, more solid source of asset creation? How are the trends changing what you have seen in the last few years?
That's very interesting. I mean, so let me first start with the data point. 10 years back, mutual funds were just 0.8% of the financial savings in India. Today it is 8%. So that tells you the trends are changing. But I think what's the pulse that we get, I think when we go to small cities and towns, the mutual funds was something, it was an alien product. People did not understand. And people used to always have questions. And I give a lot of credit to the regulator. I mean, it's one of the most simple products. It's complicated in the mind, but it's actually very simple. And what we have seen, you'll be surprised, is if you were to buy the Google Trends, the data tells you the mutual fund word is being searched more in smaller cities than bigger cities. The fastest growing cities are, let's take Nasik, Durgapur, smaller cities. And also what's happening is, mutual fund is becoming the first port of call. Because ultimately, it's not very easy to invest. And all of you, like a journalist for you, you have a day job. And I hope you don't start taking mutual funds as your day job, then we won't have a job.
Well, I should confess, because once you start investing, right, some of these guys give you a dashboard. Okay, they give you an app, and then you check how what's the valuation? Has it gone down, come down? But it's crazy. Last 2 weeks has been crazy. The markets are going up and down.
So this is exactly what makes it complicated. I think in long-term investing, you have to keep emotions out. I mean, it's a lazy way of investing. You have to invest and keep it for long term. So all the investors who have made money, I think our data shows us, investors who are very smart and who try to trade, and which is also what has come out from SEBI also, investors who trade very often, they don't make money. They make money for somebody else. Yeah. But I think if you create wealth for yourself, focus on your day job, don't look at the portfolio every day.
No, I'll stop doing that.
I'll just add out here, in the investing world, we always use this phrase, where we say investing should be something you do so that you can sleep at night. It should not be something that keeps you awake at night.
Exactly.
So one more trend I should highlight, very interesting. Till now, investing was done for a very different reason. For the first time this Diwali, we saw a very different change. Highest volume of mutual fund ETFs was traded on the stock exchanges on Dhanteras. Till now, Indians wanted to invest in gold physically.
Yes.
Last year it was 80 crores, this time it's almost 450 crores. So the trend is changing, and it's changing faster than what we can expect. And today we have 5 crore unique investors, and I think they will not be far away. I think you talked about 2047, when I think we will be $50 trillion economy. I think it's our dream and wish. I think every Indian household will be mutual fund investor by then.
You're saying by 2047?
2047.
Well, I mean, of course, I think the way things are going, and he's seen, financial markets change. I mean, from the traditional days of savings in the bank to where we are today, Mr. Rashesh Shah, I want to ask you, because when you look at the culture of investing, when you talk about the culture of investing, what makes India an investment destination? Or do you think there's more we can do in terms of policy? I felt you wanted to talk about it, but you stopped short of doing that.
Yeah, actually, I think the culture of investing is underway in front of all of us. What we're also seeing, what he spoke about gold, we're also seeing it about real assets. REITs have been one big one. When you buy into a REIT, you are actually buying an ownership in that office complex, that IT park. The same way InvIT, when you buy into an InvIT, you are buying into ownership in a road. So I think the investing culture started where you bought a share of Asian Paint, and then you now are a very small owner of Asian Paint. Now we are converting that same ownership of a company into ownership of gold, ownership of a office complex, ownership of a road. So we are actually financializing a lot of assets. Ultimately, every asset can be financialized. Any asset that has a cash flow can be financialized, and that is where the financial architecture of India has evolved. We still have a long way to go. But I think in the last, at least about 15, 20 years, we have started with mutual funds, and we go to InvIT, REIT, AIFs, all of that. All of this instrument, they all look very exciting, but ultimately what they're doing is they're allowing the right asset to be connected with the right investor who can get the cash flow there. Because that is what ultimately investing is all about, that I can put my money maybe on a longer term basis, which gives me a slightly higher return and creates capital for the country. So this entire, I think, proliferation of AIFs, InvITs, REITs have also been another big jump in our investment culture. So earlier it was only banks, then we got banks, mutual funds, capital markets, brokerage, asset management companies, AIFs, InvITs, REITs, and I think this proliferation will allow us to become more and more an investment country. And if you see, I think ultimately we have to step up our investment, our growth rate. Because currently the capital we have, and we are Atmanirbhar on capital. I think India is now fairly self-sufficient on capital, and it's a very bold statement to make, because we always feel we are capital scarce. But I saw the same thing happening on the food front. 30, 40 years ago, India had food scarcity. Now we are fairly self-sufficient. I don't know whether we had surplus or not, but we've become fairly self-sufficient on food. What last couple of years have shown us, we've become fairly self-sufficient on capital. At this about 7% growth rate, we have enough capital. We should step it up and use more capital. So if we can step up our growth rate to 8, 9, 10% and use our capital and the capital that comes from overseas through FDI and FPI, we can get to 10% growth rate. And all effort, the capital markets, the investment professional, the government, all of that is how do we get there? And we need a lot more innovation. We need, like, whether ETFs or, like we ourselves created a Bharat bond kind of a product which allows people another product, another opportunity to invest. So I think that would be very, very exciting in the next few years. What we saw in banking, we see in capital market, we see in insurance industry, in the financial sector, if we can create that. And the last part of this that should connect is connect with entrepreneurship. And I know we have quite a few people in the audience who have been entrepreneurs. But what has been, even the growth of capital market, as I said, creating wealth for investors is one byproduct. Yes. But it should create jobs, it should create capital formation.
Yes.
The third thing it should create is entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And 30 years ago, 20 years ago, entrepreneurship was mainly in Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, kind of, it was restricted there. Now, as we speak about tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, we are seeing entrepreneurship also now. We are seeing entrepreneurs from Kanpur and Varanasi and Bhavnagar and Surat and Indore also now accessing capital, accessing investment capital, which allows them to grow. So I think that will be another very exciting part of India, is we can democratize entrepreneurship in India. And we saw that. I think it happened in sports, about 30, 40 years ago, where Kapil Dev came from, earlier all cricketers came from Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai. Yes. And then suddenly in the 80s, we had Kapil Dev who came from Chandigarh. And then now we have a whole, we had MS Dhoni, all of that. So what happened in cricket, I think should happen with entrepreneurship in this, and the capital markets and the investment community should also facilitate that.
Okay, I have a couple of questions to both of you before we end the session. Sundeep, to you. This morning, Mohandas Pai, he's a very tough critic of the Modi government. He's also a very strong backer of the Modi government, right? And he used a very interesting term when he said, liberate businesses from Delhi. He said, liberate us from Delhi and watch us grow, right? So the reason I'm saying that is how much of policy contributes to businesses having a free run? I mean, in the changes that you've seen, especially in the last 11 years, how much does that contribute to flourishing?
No, I think where I started from, if you see the success of the mutual fund industry, and why I'm talking mutual fund industry, because that's a capital contributor to various other industries, is because of a strong foundation and the framework that has been created by the government. Yes. And many times what happens, whenever the government will try to create something, there will be people may think it's not right because it does not suit person A, it may suit person B. But I think we have to see clearly from the long-term point of view, and specifically when we talk of businesses like ours, where you're taking public money. There is a very strong foundation, a rule framework, which has to be there and needs to be respected by the industry. I think I can, the other point I think that you mentioned, what Prime Minister Modi has done today, I think is the biggest thing is the wealth that is getting created in the smaller cities and towns. See, it's not just about, it's very easy to say, I mean, this is right, this is wrong, because everybody has an opinion.
But he encourages that.
No, but the point is very different. Today, everything, whether Rashesh mentioned, I mentioned, the kind of wealth that is getting created in smaller cities and towns, that is the real, the proof that everything is going right in the country. Yeah. We can always have some issues, someone may have a different opinion, but I firmly believe, country is in safe hands, and I think there's no reason why we will not be touching $50 trillion.
Great. Rashesh?
I think on that I would add, I think we all need, obviously, rules and regulations are required for any civilized society, especially industries where you are taking third-party capital. I think, but what we need to continuously do is, and it's actually a very oxymoronic statement to make, we have to regulate and deregulate at the same time. Because what happens is, you keep on adding regulation, a lot of them, they get outdated.
Yes.
The need has gone away because the market practices evolved, competition
Why don't you be specific? What do you want deregulated? Do you feel the government is slow in making those changes, evolving with the times?
Not just India, I think all over the world. Yeah. What happens is we keep on adding new regulation as per the new needs of the marketplace, new needs of the industry. But all over the world, there is conversation going on that we need to also take out the old rules which were formed 18, 20 years ago. Yeah. So, and if you want, I think we had, FICCI and all constantly make long lists of rules which are outlived their purpose. Rules and regulations, even in the capital market, there are a lot of rules which have outlived the purpose because the market is evolved. It was required 18, 20 years ago. Yes. But the only point I want to add is we add rules on top of rules. If we say that mere Albina mein I have only so much space for rules and regulation. If I have to add new rules, I have to take out some old rules. That will keep the churn going, but that will also facilitate innovation, because who is the biggest victim of over-regulation? The biggest victim of over-regulation, it creates entry barriers for new firms.
Yes.
It stops innovation.
Yeah.
And the incumbents enjoy it. I mean, any incumbent in the heart of their heart are happy with a very high entry barriers,
Yeah.
because it keeps your life easier.
Yeah.
So we have to create a culture, which is hard to do in any country, including ours. Can we constantly say we will add rules, but we'll also constantly look at, and in the recent past, Modi government has done stuff. They've also decriminalized a lot of acts in the Companies Act and all that. We need to do a lot more of that, and we need to do rule making and rule removing at the same time.
Okay. If I can ask you both before we end, 30 seconds I'll give to each one of you. You made a very interesting point at the end. You said despite the monies that went out of the market, you see why it's still stable, right? In 30 seconds, your prediction of the Indian financial market, the stock markets, where do you see them headed? In 30 seconds.
I don't think so anybody in the room can predict where the stock markets are headed. But I think what is very important to understand, stock market is a reflection of the economy. If the economy does well, the stock market will also do well. So again, I think, and for me, when I say this, I always say direction is more important than speed.
Yes.
So as a country, we are in the right direction. Yeah. Now, even if the 2047, whether will be 50 can be 49 or could be 52, that's not important. But important, directionally, we are going there. And from a stock market point of view, if you were to see this way, today we are about 3.5 trillion. If that was to go up 10 times, so there's no reason. I mean, if stock market keeps getting reflected, the same valuations get reflected, you can calculate it yourself, but we can't predict.
Yeah. Rashesh ji.
I started my career in 1989, where the Bombay Stock Exchange was about 700. It's now 80,000. So you can calculate, about close to 35 years. The market is more than 100x, 120x is what I have seen. I wish I knew that at that time. But if you work backwards, I think a 13-14%, given our economic growth, a 13-14%. So on a long term or a long kind of direction, market will be up. Will it always be up? No. It will be highly volatile. So I can only say two things. In the long term, it will be up, but it will be highly volatile, which will make it interesting for media and all that, because every day markets will go up, will come down, there will be headlines out there. But for a real investor, I think markets grow as India grows.
Yes.
You should remember that.
Absolutely. Mr. Rashesh Shah, Sundeep Sikka, thank you for joining us at the India Economic Summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.